So, I've never really talked about this, but this all started about 3 years ago when I was talking to this girl for a little Natalie. She lived in an older house and had the entire basement to herself. I remember her saying things like how her house was haunted, etc. I didn't really believe her until this one night. So me and my friend Nick are spending the night at her house, and I remember my friend laying down on the couch at like 9:30 p.m. and he was just staring blankly at the wall. I didn't think anything was wrong. I thought he was just messing around. I started calling his name, yo Nick, Nick, Nick. Nothing, couldn't get a response from him. Meanwhile, I was across the room and Natalie was sitting on her bed. About after a minute of him just staring blank, he jumps off the couch saying, "I don't f with that. I don't f with that," freaking out, and Natalie started laughing. It didn't really dawn on me until later that I think she knew what was happening. Anyways, I started laughing too, thinking it was just a joke. About 5 minutes pass and he calms down and sits back down on the couch. This is where things get a little creepy and interesting. She had this screen door in her room that opened outside. I specifically remember as soon as I took 2 steps out of her room to go outside, every single light in her room, including outlets, all blew out and it was pitch black and it got really creepy for a sec. We tried everything, and the only thing in her room that would work was the lamp that was next to the couch right next to Nick's head. Anyways, this was all kinda new to me. I didn't really know what to think about the situation. I then remember things getting weird in the room, like Natalie was getting super agitated over the littlest things and wouldn't let me sleep in her bed. So I was like, whatever, I'll just sleep on the floor at the foot of her bed. I remember I just could not fall asleep that night. I was laying there while everyone else was asleep when I had a sleep paralysis type feeling. I couldn't move or anything. I remember this happened to me once while I was young, and all I could think to do was pray. I started saying our Father's prayer in my head when about halfway through it stopped, and I just tried to go back to bed. About 30 seconds pass and it hits me again, and I can't move. This is giving me chills just typing this. So I start praying again and again. Halfway through the prayer, it stops. At this point, I was like, whatever it is, it's gone. About 30 seconds passed again, but this time was much more frightening. I remember it felt as if someone plugged me into an outlet. I was being shocked, my whole body was kind of shaking, and whatever it was holding me down hard. I remember trying to move my arm as hard as I could to rip the blanket off Nick to wake him up and help me. But in my head, I was saying the Our Father, and it left halfway through again. At this point, I was freaking out. I was literally scarred for a few months after that. I literally slept in the same room as my mom for a month or so. It took me a while to kind of make sense of what happened that night, but I think some entity or demon or something, IDK, tried messing with my friend Nick, and when I laughed and taunted it, it targeted me. This story is not over. So this happened about 2 years ago when I moved into my new house, which I still live in today. I remember my aunt was visiting, and it was late at night around 2 a.m. I was just chillin' playing video games doing my thing when I heard this weird sound to my left or right. I had my gaming headset on, so I just ignored it and kept playing. When I thought I heard the same sound the second time from behind me on my bed, I took my headset off to wait and hear it again to find out what it was. I sat there for like 2 minutes, just waiting when I heard this sound right next to me. Is literally all could make out, and it was just weird and it creeped me TF out. So I ran into my mom's room and told her something was making sounds in my room, and she was like, "Oh, it probably just the sprinkler system or some BS," and went outside to look. I remember I walked back into the hall to my room and stood there waiting for my mom to come back inside when I literally heard the loudest oof. In my ear. I ran outside of my house crying and freaking out. My mom thought I was crazy. I remember hearing the voice another time while I was trying to sleep, and I just kept telling it to go away, and I haven't had any crazy stuff happen since, even though I do get sleep paralysis sometimes. Most recent experience I had was like a presence of a woman in my room, and I couldn't move. IDK, all this stuff is just creepy to me, I figured I'd post about it after and share my experience. If anyone has any insight, let me know, please. This might be excessively lengthy for certain individuals to peruse. However, I needed to share. This is whenever I first post anything on the web about this. I'm a 31-year elderly person, married, and as of late moved back in with my folks because of moving back to the town I grew up. My better half and I are taking as much time as is needed searching for our own place because of needing something decent nearby, and that is normally difficult to come by. This story happens in my folks' house, beginning back a long time back. A depiction of just a tad of content. It's a 2-story block stone house in the city, restricted yet encompassed by only woods. You need to go through a carport that leads into the kitchen with the principal room to one side. Past the kitchen is the Vitally family room, and to one side is the lobby that is extremely open. In this space, you will track down the fundamental lounge area and second living region. Yet assuming that you proceed straight, you will see the flight of stairs to one side, and, surprisingly, further straight is my folks' room and washroom. Going up the steps, you will come to the third residing region. Yes, this is an immense house with 2 arrangements of French entryways, one next to the other, that lead to the external gallery. Going straight, the A-sharp pass on drives you to the next 3 rooms and 2 washrooms. This is where the story happens. The first time I stepped foot into this house, I immediately felt off, like something just wasn't right. I felt a presence, but I didn't know what or who it was. I brushed it off, thinking I was just reading too much into it. I continued to feel this for the next couple of years, and because of this, I didn't much enjoy visiting them. My parents liked to gamble a lot back then, so they would ask me to babysit my baby brother and sister one day on the weekend. My boyfriend, now husband, loved them, so he would always babysit with me. The first few times I really didn't pay attention to the feeling I would get because we would be busy playing or eating with the kids. After that, things kind of chilled out, and we would end up watching movies until it was time for us to go to bed. Now, my husband is a freak of nature. Lol. It's like he falls asleep the second his eyes are closed. Me, on the other hand, takes me forever to get comfortable enough to wind down my mind. I also don't sleep well even when I do finally get to sleep. This night was the first time I saw and heard something in this brand new house. In this room, the bed is facing the doorway, but not directly in front of it. With the double doors open, you can see the front of the staircase and all the way down the hallway. As long as the light is on, that is. This night, only one of the hallway lights were on. I was laying in bed with the TV on, but the volume down low so I could hear if one of the kids called me. I was almost asleep when I hear one of my siblings coming down the stairs. I open my eyes a bit and wait for them to get to the bottom, but they never do. I don't think anything of it, close my eyes and begin to drift off again. A few minutes later, I hear again. So I open my eyes and wait, but again they never get to the bottom. This time I sit up and listen, a bit spooked but nothing I cannot handle. I get a bit nervous, but still I go check to see if they are there, and maybe they are scared to come all the way down or something. No one is there. Confused and thinking I must be dreaming it up, I go back to bed, this time closing one of the double doors. It was a few hours later, around 2:30 a.m., when I feel like someone is very near me, as if they are standing next to the bed right in front of me. Usually when I open my eyes, I would see the green glow of the alarm clock on the bedside table, but this time I saw nothing. It was pitch black. I couldn't even see the hallway light on, and the TV had turned off on its own. I felt like I couldn't move. I was awake now, and scared to my bones. I was finally able to call out my husband's name loud enough to wake him. He reached over and turned on the light, and right then the scared feeling went away, and I was able to move. I freaked out and started crying. I couldn't begin to explain to him what happened, because even if I had, he didn't believe in those things. So I told him I was having a nightmare and asked him to go check on the kids. When he came back, he said the kids were fine and got back in bed. With the light on, I was able to fall back to sleep, but it took me forever. The next day I told my mom about what had happened, and that's when she told me. She had been hearing footsteps on the stairs at night and even saw someone standing by the door at times. She didn't tell anyone because she did not want to scare the kids. This is when she told me what she had done. She wanted to know what was going on in her house, so she went and bought a voice recorder. One day, she decided to use it and went upstairs while everyone was gone. She asked your typical questions of, "Who is here? What do you want? And why are you here?" And then said, "You have passed away and need to go into the light. You are not welcome here." The next day, she decided to leave the recorder in one of the bedrooms upstairs while it was recording for about 4 hours while she was out running errands. I asked if she had checked it, and to my surprise, she said she was too afraid to listen to it alone. I wanted to listen to it. Off we went to the computer and began listening to it after it was uploaded. During the 4 hours she was gone, you could hear something clicking or tapping. Sounds of a drawer opening and closing, but we weren't for sure. Then we listened to the part where she was asking questions. Now you could hear a sound that resembled a fan or maybe static throughout the whole thing, so some sounds were indistinguishable. But the one sound we did hear chilled us to the core. When she asked, "What do you want?" it gave us an answer, changing my brother's name for this. The answer was Jamie. It didn't answer any other questions except for that one. I cried immediately. He wasn't having night terrors for no reason. Something was there for him. Every night. We soon asked a friend to cleanse the house. For a long time, everything has been okay. My brother stopped having night terrors. My mom was able to sleep comfortably, and all was good again. Until now, I've been living in this house for a month and a half. For the last 3 weeks, I've been seeing things everywhere, especially when I am alone. Because of this, I won't stay alone anymore. I get this strong feeling of being watched. I had the feeling of someone pulling on my blanket at night. I think it's time for another cleanse. Oh, and just an FYI, I am the 3rd generation on my mother's side of the family that is able to see spirits. My dad's side of the family has, in the past, before I was born, practiced black magic. I don't like speaking to them, and I won't dabble in any of the spiritual stuff most people do. I stay as far away from it as possible, and I recommend that you do too. Even if you are careful, these spirits can haunt for a long time, even after you are gone. Update. So I'm sitting in the living room floor playing with my nephew. Mom's on the left couch and sister is on the right couch. My nephew has a toy piano that is made of cloth and can be folded up. This piano is behind us in the corner with all my nephew's other toys. We are talking and watching my nephew attempt to walk when this piano makes a sound. It's like someone is pressing the keys slowly. We stop and stare and then look at each other shocked. Then the keys are pressed rapidly until it finally shuts off on its own.